Hello and welcome to On the Other Hoof. The eagerly awaited National Hunt season is upon us, and we are going to be previewing over the next hour, maybe a little bit more, the 2014-2015 jump season. Joining me are Callum Medell and Adam Webb. They're the regular faces anyway, and we're privileged, maybe, to be joined by Gary Moore's conditional jockey, George Gordon. Welcome to On the Other Hoof again.
Cheers, yeah. Don't know about privilege, but you got me whether you like it or not.
Well, we say that. Last year, embarrassingly, the jockey did best out of all of us.
Jockeys are the
we just went through off air our fancies and horses that we put up to follow last year, and Callum, yours weren't inspiring, were they?
I had a few that were all right. Got a couple of Aintree winners. I got Silviniaco Conti, but yeah, I had some shockers on there. I think we all did though.
I think mine were mostly shockers. I think I had Jackadam, which is the only one I'm willing to boast about because it actually won.
I'm not boasting about any of mine from last year. There's absolutely nothing I put up last year that remotely did anything, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think, actually, I did a list of 20, and out of 20 I had one Grade 1 winner, and it was Briar Hill in a free-runner race. That sums up how bad I did last year.
Well, at least you had a Grade 1 winner, in fairness, because I was awful. But you actually did all right, George.
Yeah. Lord Windermere, Saudi Grugy.
Well, we'll go back to Gold Cup Day. You had Verywood at 40 to 1 and Lord Windermere at 20 to 1.
Yeah.
That pretty much won you the season. Because, again, it wasn't that inspiring. Mike Andrews is not here because, well, he's probably still crying about my 10 and yours being out of the season. And obviously, it's a very sad thing to be hit with that just before the season's about to start. But the Champion Hurdle's still heating up to be quite a hot race. Obviously, the new one put in a okay reappearance at the weekend at Kempton, but the Champion Hurdle without my 10 or yours should still be a good race, Adam?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's obviously this one horse that most people have been talking about for the whole summer for the race, and it's Faheen, and I think we're all in it. I don't know about George, but I know me, you, and Callum are in agreement that we think that this horse could be something special. I mean, I will hold my hands up right now. I'll hold them right up as we speak. I was wrong about this horse because at Cheltenham I said he kicked practically 3 out of the last 4 out of the way, and I said after that he'd be a chaser, and Luke said to me, no, wait till he goes over 2 miles, then you'll be proven wrong. So I was like, alright then, and at Punchestown he absolutely blew me away, and I mean, I just couldn't believe how well he jumped at pace, and the fact that he beat graded animals and made them look ordinary. I just think this horse could be very special, and I think we all agree that he's going to be a champion hurdle winner, but
hopefully so.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. Trying to find something to beat him now, and I find it very difficult to.
Yeah, well, it's a hard enough task to find a winner, full stop. Never mind finding something to beat what you think's going to win. But we've divided tonight up into 6 categories, haven't we? 6, maybe 5. We've got Novice Hurdlers, Novice Chasers, obviously. Then more established hurdlers, i.e., second season hurdlers. Anything that isn't a novice or a juvenile, basically. Hurdler, chaser, handicappers, and then anything we want to throw at the end, dark horses that we're not really sure what category they go in, but we want to put them in anyway for the horse to follow, i.e. something that could go horribly wrong and we don't really see them sort of enhance their potential whatsoever. But we'll get started on the Novice Hurdlers, and we were talking about earlier on, it's hard to sort of get Novice Hurdlers into your books as you take the bumper horse from last year. They look to be more stayers. Callum, you were definitely one that was signed up to that theory, and you've gone more down the staying route, haven't you?
I have. Looking back at the bumpers, I don't think they're particularly strong this year. I could be wrong, but particularly the Aintree bumper, I didn't think was necessarily that good. I mean, I think a lot of winners will come out of it, but looking at the Supreme markets and the Neptune markets, I do think the horses that will be fighting that out in March will be horses that we'll see later in the season and popping up throughout the year. So I've got 3 on my list anyway. The first 2 are very much horses that are going to be staying further, and are going to need time, but I do really like them. Firstly is one from a champion bumper, Indefinitely Red, trained by Steve Dollings, who was really impressive in 2 bumpers, first at Uttoxeter and then at Newbury, beating T for 2 and in a listed bumper, and did it really well. Then was not disgraced at all in the champion bumper, travelled like just as good as most of them, and probably just wasn't really ready for the fight, but he's a point-to-point winner in Ireland, and he's just going to be a proper staying chaser. And the fact that he's running to this sort of level already in bumpers suggests to me that I think they've got a very, very good horse on their hands. Looking at another bumper, and this form, strangely, was franked quite considerably at the weekend, but not at Cheltenham, in fact at Ascot. With Forgotten Rules absolutely bolting up again in the long distance cup. There's a horse that finished second to him in the Punchestown bumper called Alamein, who I know for a fact is very highly rated by Gigginstown House, and he's trained by Gordon Elliott. Again, he's a proper chaser in the making, but he's the kind of horse I can see potentially going for the Albert Bartlett and running particularly well. So he's a horse that I rate very highly. Another one that's probably a little bit different to the others that I'm going to put up a little bit quicker. He was a novice last year. He ran it in the Neptune behind Forheen. It's a horse of Nicky Henderson's called Cup Final, who again he's bred to appreciate time, but they kept him as a novice last year just because there was no point of losing his novice status late in the season. He ran particularly eye-catching behind Irving at Kempton, so he's the kind of horse I think will appreciate a flat track, and I can see him potentially just being so well handicapped off 125 and climbing the novice ranks. Now I think he could well be a supreme contender by the end of the year, but he's going to have to improve a lot, but he's without doubt one for handicap, so I'm going to stick him in the novices anyway because he's one that I want to put a quicker one in there. So they're the three for me.
So Cup Final is your quick one, is it?
It is, yeah. The other two are slow.
It's not saying a great deal there. We'll come to you, George, for your first one, and then we'll skip over to Adam for his first loser. So your first novice hurdler for this season?
My first novice hurdler would be Simon Squirrel, the ready winner of a decent-looking Chepstow bumper for Charlie Brooks under the ownership of Tom Lacey. So, Tom Lacey will have prepared him and etc., which is usually a good source of horses. Tom Lacey's. He got a Racing Post rating of 102 for winning this bumper by 4.5 lengths. Seemed to sort of take his time to sort of get to understand what was going on, and then ran out quite a nice winner. Again, I say it was a nice bumper. The second, Rock the Kabash, won next time out at Foss Last. The third had already won a race, obviously carrying a penalty, but still he's beaten two inferior winners. He should improve for a hurdle. He's by Rob Anderschamps, so we'd like to see him, go hurdling and then hopefully improve again going chasing. And one of the most eye-catching parts of all of it is that in the last couple of weeks he's been bought by Graham Wiley to go and train with Paul Nicholls. I don't know how much for, but to me he seems like he could be a really nice horse just throughout this season.
Well, you probably saved the best bit till last there.
Yeah.
With that, because obviously it was
keep you on the hook.
Yeah, well represented. Well, Graham Wiley was well represented by Shane Till in the bumpers last year, but obviously Willie Mullins. A bit more of a left field one, I'd say that one.
Yeah, I know. It's just a horse that sort of caught my eye first time up. I like to follow the sort of Tom Lacey horses. Yeah. I think he's a really good sort of handler of young horses.
Yeah, fair enough. Adam, your first novice hurdler.
Well, I've got a lot of novice hurdlers, but I'm gonna whittle it down to just. I'll give you three. I'll give you three, but then you can come back in between if you know what I mean. Okay. The first one I'm going to give you is a stayer, and he's called Fletcher's Flower, and he's trained by Harry Fryer, and his bumper form looks really solid. I mean, he was second in a Utoxeter bumper behind Braddock Rock. The third has come out since and won on his debut over hurdles at Chepstow, and he then went to Punchestown, and he stepped up in trip that day over 2.25 miles with Derek O'Connor on board, and he won there really nicely, and it was a game performance, and he just looks as though a trip is going to suit him. He's entered up at Chepstow on Saturday, over 3 miles, and I just think that trip will be the absolute making of him, and he could be an Albert Bartlett contender by the end of the year.
So, sort of long-term aims, you would think you would make him up as an Albert Bartlett horse?
Long-term for this year, yeah.
Long-term overall chasing, I'd imagine.
Oh, definitely. He will make a smashing chase. All the cliches are coming out already. It's fantastic. But I can't wait to see him over a fence.
If anyone's playing National Hunt Cliche Bingo at home, then
I've got my scratch card here.
National Hunt Bingo is up already.
I've already said ready winner. So
ready, right, we've got one from you. Yeah. I'll try and keep words as basic as possible for this one. My first novice hurdler to follow would be Vigil. I spent a long time watching the big bumpers back a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, and trying to find something that was eye-catching from the back of the field. And I came up with Vigil of Dermot Welds, and he's a horse that looks as if he'll take you to a hurdle, maybe even a fence in time, but it seemed over 2 miles to travel really well into his races, then get a little bit outpaced before staying on once more. So that would scream to me that he'd want more of a trip. I've got in mind more of a Neptune for him. The ground isn't really too much of a worry. He's won on soft enough ground in Ireland, but he's also finished 5th in the Champion Bumper at Cheltenham. That was on good ground. I wouldn't really say he'd want it rattling fast, but being in Ireland, you're not really going to get too fast to ground, and the ability to handle soft will see him winning races this season. So my first one will be Vigil, who in bumper races had pretty top form behind the likes of Silver Concord, obviously, at Cheltenham, and mixed it with the best. If he can take to a hurdle, I can really see him sort of going to the top of the 2.5 mile novice hurdle ranks. We'll come back to you for your second novice hurdler to follow.
Sure. My second novice hurdler is Milcian. Was the highest rated bumper winner of last season. He didn't actually go to Cheltenham, but he achieved a Racing Post rating of 145, winning. Where was he? Slips my mind where he won it, but
actually, I think we can interrupt this because I think Adam napped him that day.
No, I picked, no. He was beaten by No More Heroes.
He's beaten by the one unit. Oh, okay, right.
He was beaten by No More Heroes.
That's gone on to your next point, right?
Yeah, this is going on. But to me, like, No More Heroes looks a real sort of speedy bumper type of horse. Like, the fact that he went point to pointing as a younger horse, No More Heroes, and had quite a heavy fall one day, and then they ran him in bumpers, took him hurdling, then sent him back in bumpers. Makes me wonder if he might simply be a bumper horse and maybe won't be bothering Milcian so much. The fact that Milcian will probably improve for a hurdle, being by Milan. They say he's won 3 of his 5 bumpers by 5 lengths, 8 lengths, and the most recent after getting beaten by No More Heroes by 25 lengths. To me, he just, like I said, I'd give him not so much an excuse because he got beaten by a better bumper horse on the day by No More Heroes, but I think he may just be a bumper horse. I'd like to think Milcian will certainly improve for a hurdle. And like I said, highest rated bumper winner of last year.
It's just a bit of a worry, maybe taking 2 hurdles. I'm also going to call you up on pronunciation here.
Yeah.
So first, I say Milshawn.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I suppose it is Milshawn. But
are we deciding on Milshawn or Milcian?
Yeah.
Milshawn, I'll give him Milshawn. I'm paid to land on my head, for God's sake.
That's fair enough. You've done it plenty of times as well. We'll move on from that. Adam, your second novice hurdler to follow.
Well, unbelievably, George has just mentioned him. I actually will put No More Heroes up now. Gordon Elliott says he's a long-term project, so I don't expect to see him much this year. And he actually caught my eye in his first bumper win at Leopardstown at Christmas, and he literally came to the home turn pulling double and went clear. The style in which he went clear, he won by 39 lengths, and on really bottomless ground as well. He quickened away from, I wouldn't say it was the best field he's quickened away from, but the way he did it was just so impressive. And then he beat Milshawn, obviously, at Naas the time after that. And I think he got it day from Milshawn, so it was a good performance from Milshawn to finish as close as he did. And a lot of people think that Milshawn could even be better than No More Heroes. Point win interests me, because the second is Battleborn, who's trained by Charlie Longston, and the fourth is a horse called Fort Worth, who won at Wetherby last week and looks a smart prospect as well. So that point-to-point form is working out really nicely. And I just think, even if we don't see him much this year, he's more for next year, but he's a horse I really, really like.
Yeah, that's fair. I know you've liked him for quite a while, haven't you, actually, as well?
Yeah. It was that bumper win. I remember telling you about it, and I was just like, whoa, go watch this. This is impressive.
Well, the fact that you actually put him up as a nap in an Irish bumper as well, I think that speaks volumes of you. I only have 2 novice hurdlers to follow this season, and the second one is Harry Fry trained Jolly Allen, who halfway through last season, JP McManus bought after a romp at Wincanton first time up. Didn't really beat much that day. I think he actually beat one of your horses. One of Gary's, it was
Wincanton.
Abuelo.
Oh, Abuelo. Yeah.
Which
That'd be fairly decent form.
Fair enough.
It's quite a nice horse.
I had him down as not beating much, but I'll take it. I'll trust your form more.
He's a big baby, but he'd be a nice horse this year. I haven't
enough.
mentioned him in here because he is quite highly strung, but yeah, could be a nice horse.
Fair enough. That's more of a boost to the form than I was going to give it. So
he's actually from the Grugery as well. He's from one of 3 we've got from the place Sardi Grugery was bred. So.
What do you call it?
The Grugery.
The Grugery.
It's genuinely
exactly its name.
La Grugery.
Okay, fair enough. I'd have been happy to accept that as a joke, but okay. Well, that form has taken a bit of a boost in what I've just said, because I wasn't going to give it much credit, really. I didn't think there was much behind him that he's beaten, but what he did beat, it was more the manner and the way he went about it. He pretty much didn't really break a sweat doing it. However, he was then thrown in the deep end next time out behind Shane's Hill at Punchestown, and he didn't really cut much ice there. However, saying that, turning for home, he was still there with a decent enough chance. And the thing that caught my eye is he still made a pretty rapid move on the bridle, pretty soft ground. And when I say soft ground, it was pretty soft ground at this time of year. I remember Black Hercules is not to take into it whatsoever, but the fact that he was able to make that move before getting tired and staying on at his own pace shows that there is a little bit of, or quite a lot of ability there for me. Derek O'Connor rode that day, and he just looked after him once he sort of had lost his chance behind sort of better horses once they got away. But it wasn't the worst performance in the world, and I always had him down as a horse that will improve for this season. So I'd like to see a bit more. As regards to distance, I'd love to tell you what I want to see him over. I imagine in time he'll be more of a stayer. And maybe 2.5, possibly they might even try him at 3 miles this season. I'm not 100% sure, but he's a fantastic looking horse, and I'm fairly excited about him. It'd be interesting to see where they go. I know he's expected out moderately soon, actually. There's a Harry Fry interview, I think it was on Racing FM quite recently, where he said he was going to bring him out, I think, in the next month. So we'll be keeping an eye out for that, but he's more of a tentative one. I think he might be a better chaser, like Adam mentioned about Fletcher's Flyer. Obviously, them being stablemates, I think they'll both be chasers in time. However, this season with Jolly Allen, I'm not sure. He's more of one just to keep an eye on and see what he does. But again, he's got bags of ability, and I wouldn't be surprised if he landed maybe 1 or 2 nice prizes this season. You got 1 or 2 more?
I've got 1 more. It's funny. He sort of slots into this category because he hasn't won a race, but he competed in a couple of decent handicaps last season. It's the Green Ogre. He's not so much a proper class horse for me, but he's just got to be a shoe-in and a maiden this season. I think he's rated 126, 127, somewhere around there. And he was just unbelievably unlucky last year. I can say that because I look after him, so I went with him every blooming time. But he got left 10 lengths at the start in the Sussex Champion Hurdle at Plumpton, and still only got beaten, I think, 3 lengths. But for a maiden to come out and do that, you just got to think, in a novice hurdle or a maiden this year, he's got to be a shoo-in. But he'll be more of a chaser for next year. He'll be a good horse when he goes chasing. This year, he might struggle with his mark, but he's got to be a certainty in a maiden.
Yeah, quite a few. I think a few people are sort of going to be following the Green Ogre this season, actually, for the reasons he stuck out at Plumpton like a sore thumb that day.
Yeah.
Running a really encouraging race. Adam, you got 1 more novice hurdler to follow?
Yes, I have, and it's not. We were talking about this on Thursday, and you mentioned Black Lion. It's not going to be him, and the reason I'm not going to put him in, it's not bound one that I think is worth flagging up. Willie Mullins has got so many novice hurdlers. However, this one I think has slipped under the radar because he only raced once in the bumper last year, and he's called Westthorpe. And he won a Ferry House bumper, and he did it in really nice style, obviously with Patrick Mullins on board. But the horse that was second to him, Fine Article, came out and won a bumper, and then ran really well in the big Punchestown bumper behind Shane's Hill. Now, if you take that literally, Westthorpe isn't far behind some of Mullins' top bumper horses. And in time, I think he'll want a trip. Not just yet. I think he can start off at 2 miles and win a few maiden hurdles, and potentially by the end of the year go up to 2.5. I'm not if he can make up into a festival horse, but I think he'll definitely win that, and I think he is half decent. So Westthorpe won a slight. I'd say he's slightly more left field than other Mullins picks that you'll get. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, for most novice hurdlers, anyway, it would be. Is that us wrapped up now for novice hurdlers? Anyone else got any others that you want to throw into the mix? No? Okay, so we'll move on to novice chasers. One thing I've always forgotten to do on this show is to include you guys, which is quite rude of me. If you want to have a say in the show, if you want to put your fancies forward, if you want to put any questions, if you want to ask George any questions about the upcoming season, then you can just tweet us at OnTheOtherHoof. And we'll read out all your questions and fancies at the end of the show. Just let us know any horses that you'll be following this season. Again, any questions that you may have about anything horse racing related, preferably National Hunt related for this season, and we'll read them out at the end of the show. But we move forward now onto Novice Chasers. I'm going to come to Callum. I'm going to come to you first for your first Novice Chaser.
Well, I've got 2 Novice Chasers, but I'll deal with the first one. That I think will be racing around 2 miles. The other one probably more of a 3-mile chaser. Paul Nicholls, I think, has got a real good book of potential chasers this year. Notably Safir de Rue. I know I think Adam's probably going to mention Port Mellon, but so I'll leave that to him. But Petit Zig is one that I've been a big fan of this horse for a long time. It's obviously coming from France, done particularly well for Nicholls, obviously second to Willow's Saviour in the big Ascot Handicap in December, second again to Melodic Rendezvous in the Champion Hurdle Trial. I think it's really good form and kind of got stuck a little bit over 2 and then 2.5 miles in good, top-notch hurdles, but he just looks a real chaser to me. I'm not a believer that chasers have to be these big brutes of horses. I just think he's a real slick moving horse that will really appreciate a fence and be fast over a fence. I think that's the key. So around 2 miles on decent ground, I think we'll see the absolute best of him. And I just think he's an ideal Arkle horse, to be honest. But hopefully he can progress into that. I mean, he's only 5 now, so I think he oozes class, and that should hold him in good stead for chasing.
Yeah, so to blow my own horn really here, I interviewed Nick Schofield as part of Bet Racing Nation Jumps season preview, and he was singing Petit Zig's praises, really fancied him for the season, and was really excited to see him with fences. So a bit more substance towards Petit Zig, and again, I think he's one that quite a few people would be getting quite excited about for the upcoming season, going with fences anyway. George, your first Novice Chaser.
Right, so to completely sort of go away from that, I'm going to tip up a big brute for this season in Via Sundown. Obviously,
He's still a novice.
He is still a novice, yeah, he won 3.
No, I've got him in handicappers.
He won 3 races very impressively. He might not have beaten that much. So he beat nice enough horses.
Yeah,
it was more the manner he did it.
Yeah, it's Benvolio and is it Lamorcode as well?
And Lamorcode, yeah.
Lamorcode's run okay first time up this season.
Yeah,
so,
that's right. Yeah. He's a lovely horse, and even though he's from France, he was real green last year. Hadn't quite filled into himself. He's come back an improved horse for sure. His jumping's improved. He seems stronger, and I'm dying to see him. He's got a lot of class, but I'm dying to see him sort of go more the sort of Welsh national route towards the end of the season. We see him in some big staying handicaps off an attractive mark, and I think what the handicapper does with him as the season goes on will sort of plan his route for him. He could well be our Sussex national horse if he's on a workable mark at the time. I can see him going through a lot of big staying chases and running up quite a sequence.
Yeah. And
hopefully finishing off with something, well, maybe not finishing off with, but going to the festival, certainly.
Yeah.
He's a real nice horse. And
I think I dubbed him to you the new Vino Grego, and he's probably more of a stayer than Vino, isn't he?
He's more of a stayer, and he'd be more...
Find a kind way to
more
say
willing.
it. Find a kind way to say it.
More willing than Vino Grego. He's a much better jumper.
Yeah.
Vino Grego sort of summarises your point about chasers not always being big brutes. He's 17. He's at least 17 hands, and when they're that big, if they get in deep, they just can't sort themselves out and fiddle. They have to be long all the time, which is why you're sometimes better off with a smaller horse that can sort itself out and just pop.
Yeah.
Which is, Vino Grego is case study.
Yeah. Well, with going back to Via Sundown, he's officially rated 140 at the moment. It's sort of he wouldn't have that much leniency left back in that, would he? If he won, say, a big handicap.
I don't know. I think he could be much better than 140.
I think, I completely agree. He's better than 140. It's just that if he sort of wins a big one early, he may not do it.
I wouldn't have thought he'll go straight for a big one. I think he might well try and keep him under wraps for the Sussex National because he just likes to win the race. But I don't know. You'll see how the season pans out with him.
Yeah.
Sort of what the handicapper does with him. He'll run when he's ready and see what mark he's on come Sussex National and the Welsh National.
Yeah, there's always a risk taking a Gary Moore horse with someone from Gary's yard here in a different section. But yeah, no, I do agree with By Sundown. Adam, your first Novice Chaser.
I'm going to go with the youngest horse for Novice Chasing in my list, and it's a horse called Abyssal, who somehow ended up as the top-rated juvenile last year, and he is probably best known for burying Ruby Walsh in front of the stands in the Triumph Hurdle. Don't ignore his run at Otoy. Willie Mullins said that he wasn't 100% fit that day. They'd left it. He did a hard race at Punchestown. They'd left him, and Willie has admitted that he's left him too much, and he just wasn't fit that day. I think he'll be an absolute monster over a fence, and with that 4-year-old allowance, and he has been described in the mould of Jack Adam, who we're getting a fairly big mention later from one member of the panel. Nice. He's been described in that way, and I just think with that allowance, he could pick up a few prizes earlier in the season, and then potentially, I don't know if he'll take him to Cheltenham. If they don't, I wouldn't be too worried, because as a younger horse, I think he could just benefit from the experience in Ireland this year before going on to bigger and better things in the future. So Abyssal's my first one to follow for this year.
Yeah, I completely get the sort of relation to Jack Adam in that. My first Novice Chaser is going to be one that we've actually already seen over a fence very recently, and Chris P. Green that we saw in action at Cheltenham this weekend. For me, it was a more than pleasing chase debut. He got in a bit tight to a couple, most notably the last, which really sort of lost him his chance against Court Minstrel, who, in fairness, is just a quicker horse and managed to sprint away a little bit faster. Chris P. Green, my plan for him, if it all goes well, is the centenary or the novices handicap chase on the first day of the Cheltenham Festival. If he can get a decent handicap mark on that, he could be a really nice bet in it. However, his hurdles mark is 142, so that could be a little bit high for it. So you need to be a little bit lower on that. But saying that, I do think he'll win his fair share of Novice Chasers along the way. I just think he'll be a much better horse when stepping up in trip. Last season, he ended his campaign in the National Spirit at Fontwell. I think it's fair to say he's over the top by that point.
He certainly was, yeah. He'd just been knocked around in a lot of big field handicaps, and like I said, if he hadn't run sort of 2 weeks before, I'd like to have seen him win the Game Spirit. Not the Game Spirit.
The Game Spirit. The National Spirit.
National Spirit, that's it. You'd like to have seen him win that. It would have been tailor-made for him. And that's the other thing. Last year, he's knocked about in so many big handicaps. He's not the sort of horse that likes running in big fields. So I could see him winning a few Novice Chasers this year. Sort of 4-5 runner, decent races.
Yeah. Well, if you look last year, like his handicap form is fantastic. He's second in a listed handicap hurdle to Pine Creek, then third in the Jerry Fielden at Newbury before going on to be fourth in the Ladbroke, and then seventh in the Betfair Hurdle. Yeah. So that's more than suitable. Saying that he might even have more improvement to Conky still only a 5-year-old.
That's it. I actually, no word of a lie, I said this when he was a 2-year-old. I'd said to his owners he was their RSA horse. He's actually turned out to be a bit quicker than I thought he would be. Like he was, even then as a 2-year-old, he was our best working 2-year-old. And we had all the flat horses in, nothing really good, but horses like Shamahan, he was flattening them on the gallops. So I don't know, I could see him sticking to 2 miles, but
if you dare stick to 2 miles and don't go for the centenary, I'll be really annoyed.
I don't know. I think they may well step him up in trips. He looks a much bigger, stronger horse this year.
Yeah.
It's just been every year since he was a 2-year-old. He was big and lean and gangly, and just thinking he'll grow up, he'll fill out next year. And he comes back in from the summer, he's just got taller. And finally this year he's filled out his frame and he looks fantastic.
Yeah.
A horse I've always had a soft spot for.
You looked after him as a youngster, didn't you?
I did. All through his 2-year-old year during my holiday from school.
You're still at school, aren't you? Callum, your second Novice Chaser.
Yeah, again, this is looking a bit different. Again, Nicky Henderson, all the main trainers have obviously got a high amount of top quality chasers and top quality horses in all divisions, but I'll go for a Henderson horse here, and it would have been Joss's Hill, to be honest. Joss's Hill was a horse that instantly last year thought he's going to make an absolutely brilliant chaser, but they've had a few setbacks with him, and I'm just particularly worried. I really worry you might not even see him this year, to be perfectly honest. So instead I'm going to go for Whisper, who is a horse I really don't think has been given the credit he deserves. This is a horse that won at Cheltenham and Aintree last season. Firstly in the Coral Cup, which is a desperately hard race to win. Brutal handicap. You need to have a tough horse to win it, and he toughened it out again at Aintree, beating a pretty good field for me, and he came off the bridle quite early, but just kept sticking on. And I just think he's just going to be really suited by a race like the RSA, where you need a properly tough horse. And he's just never seemed to run a bad race. He's only twice been out of the places. Firstly, when beaten 20 lengths behind Nat Fisher's Cross as a novice, and then in the same season finished 4th behind Close Touch in a good handicap hurdle at Sandown. Since then, he's been placed in every start, including 4 wins. And yeah, it's just not a horse I just don't think has been given the credit he deserves. He's rated 164 over hurdles now. I can see him racing just as high over fences, and that's more than good enough to be fighting in top grade 1 company. So Whisper for me to be a top chaser.
Yeah, we had a bit of a debate about Whisper the other day. I've got a little bit of worry about him taking to fences.
Why?
I don't know. I just think it'll be back to your point of big horses make chase. I think he lacks a little bit of scope. It's taking nothing away from his jumping of a hurdle. I saw him at Sandown a bit earlier on in his career, and I'm not saying he won't have grown since then, because obviously he will have, but I just expected a bigger horse and more of a sort of a proper horse. So I thought he'd be a chaser in time as well, but I was just a little bit disappointed by his raw physique in a way.
Again, yeah, I know what you mean, but I'm not one, like I said earlier, I'm not a firm believer that a horse just has to be big and brute-like to be a good over fences. I just think he's just an incredibly tough horse that will handle anything. So, I see him his favourite for the RSA at the moment, so he deserves to be right up there.
Yeah.
Can I make a quick point on Whisper as well?
Yeah.
Just a very quick point. At Cheltenham last year in November, when he ran in that handicap hurdle, he made several mistakes that day. And that was then when I thought he'd be a better chaser, because I think sometimes with hurdlers, with chasers, they see hurdles and they just kick them out of the way because they don't respect them. And I know his jumping got better over hurdles as the year went on, but I just think he respects his hurdles now, but I just think he'll respect a fence a bit more than a hurdle. So, and I think I agree with Callum's sentiments, but he wouldn't be a horse I'd put up personally.
Yeah, that's a more than fair point.
It's what we've always done with them at home, is if they don't respect a hurdle at home, they're just whacking them out of the way and sending them straight up the fences. And it's sort of kill or cure, but once they've been schooling over fences, they show hurdles a bit more respect,
They learn very quickly.
Yeah, and that, I think it's done the trick with the one I mentioned earlier, the Green Ogre, who's jumping much better this year.
Yeah. We'll stick with you and go for your second Novice Chaser.
Yeah. I'm sticking with one of my selections from last year in Royal Regatta of Philip Hobbs's. He looked plenty useful enough last year. He won his few novice hurdles, and then just I think maybe got a grade too high for what he's capable of at the moment. But he's bred all over to jump a fence. He looks all over the chaser. He's got to be 16.2, 16.3. He's a big brute of a horse. And I haven't heard anything from Hobbs's, but he's 6 years old, and I assume he'll go chasing this year.
Yeah, well,
they've been quite slowly with him so far, and you'd think this will be the year he'll tackle a fence, and if he does, I think he'll certainly win a couple of novice chases.
Yeah, I think we all agree with that, wouldn't we, guys?
Yeah. In his stable tour, Hobbs said he may go for handicap hurdle first, and he does have a lenient mark over hurdles as well, I think.
He does, yeah.
I remember him on New Year's Day at Cheltenham. He travelled really well on really bad ground, and he just didn't get up the hill that day. And he was entitled not to get up the hill, because for me, he wants better ground, as he proved when he won at Aintree in his first start.
He's got quite good act. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's more than fair enough with Royal Regatta. Adam, your second Novice Chaser.
I'm going to go with Port Mellon this time. Me and Callum were at Cheltenham. It was at the Paddy Power meeting on the Saturday, and he ran in the novice hurdle that Creepy won, and we looked at all of them in the paddock, and we both agreed that Port Mellon, out of that paddock, looked potentially the nicest horse there for the future. And he travelled really well that day, and just inexperience, I think, cost him that day. And it probably cost him in the Albert, well, he didn't even run in the Albert Bar. I think the inexperience of going out onto the track, and he's just spooked at something, and poor old Darryl Jacobs just got thrown off and seriously injured, and I'm glad that he's back in one piece and riding big winners again. He then went to Aintree, and he just found it happening too quick for him there. And Aintree is not a track. Well, not the mile-made course is going to suit him. Who knows? One day he may head over on the national course. I don't think he will. But I just think a big galloping track for him and 3 miles over fences could suit him down to the ground. And as Callum mentioned, he is still a novice of the hurdle, so they may even exploit that and win a maiden hurdle with him. But I just think tracks like Newbury, Cheltenham, I can't think of other track, proper galloping tracks. I don't know about him going right-handed. He might go right-handed, but at the moment, I'd be sticking for tracks like Newbury and Cheltenham. I think there's a novice chase at Newbury towards the end of November at the Hennessy meeting that I've already pinpointed as a race that Nichols has done very well in the past. And he won it with Just a Par 12 months ago, and his description of him in his stable so funny. He stays longer than the mother-in-law. So Port Mellon's one of my chases.
Yeah, I think Port Mellon's definitely going to be one that will excel over fences and leave his hurdles falling well behind on that. I'm going to put up one I think will go 2 mile novice chasing, and Gil Gamboa, who is probably remembered for the wrong reason of smashing the second last out of the ground in the Supreme last year. He was still travelling really well up until that point, and he was on Votor's sort of coattails and was still with a chance of playing a hand. He likely wouldn't have won it. I wouldn't have had him outside the first 5-6. However, made that mistake, lost about 7-8 lengths, and you can't do that late in a race at Cheltenham. You can't do that at any time in a championship race at Cheltenham. So he finished 13th out of 18, but that doesn't tell the whole story whatsoever. He still looks a horse with masses of ability. He won a big handicap hurdle at Punchestown leading up to Cheltenham, and that's the race at the BallSports.com handicap hurdle. You don't win that race unless you're a very good horse, and the roll call of that is fantastic actually, but it didn't go to plan at Cheltenham whatsoever. He travelled really well down the hill, travelled like one of the best horses in the race actually until making that mistake. So I can see him make it into a chase. He's a big raw thing. He's always sort of had chasing on the mind. I think he's only a 6-year-old, so he's got plenty of time, but I think over 2 miles this season, probably not an Arkle horse, but it'd be interesting to see what Ender Bolger actually does with him this season. But over 2 miles, I think he could do a bit of damage in the novice ranks. So Gil Gamboa is my second novice chaser to follow. How many novice chasers have we got left, just out of interest?
I've got 2. I'm not going to even just literally going to say the name, and 1 I actually want to talk about.
So, well, we'll say 2. Callum, how many have you got?
Oh, none. I've said both mine. So.
Right, Callum's done. We'll go for your 2 that you're going to mention the name of quickly. Then.
They need no explaining whatsoever. Vator, who for me is actually the best of Willie Mullins' Novice Hurdlers last year. You may agree, you may not, but he's a horse I like a lot. And the return of Pont Alexandra, which I am personally very excited for. Rated 152 already after 4 runs. He'll be a very nice horse. Those are the ones I just want to give a shout to.
I couldn't disagree with Pont Alexandra actually. It's big gutting. He was out last season, but hopefully he returns the same sort of horse this season. Adam, is it your last novice chaser?
2, but I'm going to explain 1, as George has just done there. One, I will mention 1 first. I'm going to mention Urban Him. I'm not going to talk about him because I think he's a lovely horse, and I know that I know someone has tweeted in with his name, and I think he's an absolute monster.
It's a pigeon.
It's not Pigeon actually. It's I think it's Jackie Kingan. Yeah, she tweeted in. We both like the horse a lot, and soft ground in the north. I think he'll win a fair few novice chasers. The one I will talk about in a bit of detail. George has just mentioned Vitor and Pont Alexandra, both owned by Rich Ritchie, and he's also got Clondor Court. Now Clondor Court won his maiden hurdle at Leopardstown over Christmas, and he looked very workmanlike. But the trip 2 mile 2 was too sharp for him. And he went absolutely bolted up at Furless over 2.6. And Ben was injured and obviously missed the rest of the season. And apparently the Albert Bartlett was going to be the target. I just think 3 miles on soft ground, he is going to make a lovely chaser. And I think that one of the races I had in mind for him in the first half of the season is the Grade 1 over Leopardstown over Christmas over 3 miles. I think that race is absolutely tailor-made for him. And Mullins has won it with Back in Focus before. Who I'm pleased to say is back as well in training, so Condor Court for me.
Was it Michael that put a Back in Focus in the Nationals as best bet last year?
And then about a week later he was a non-runner. So
yeah,
great on you post that, Michael.
Well done. I'm going to reel off my second to last Novice Chaser, and I'm probably going to use you for quite a bit of this actually, because it's you back, well, again of Gary Moore's yard, and you back sort of. He wasn't around last year because he picked up an injury. How bad was the injury that he actually picked up at home?
It wasn't horrific, but he's sort of horse that you really just want to take your time with. You know, he's a big old horse. He carries a lot of weight because he eats so damn much. And he's just the sort of horse. If you've had a touch of a leg, you really just want to lay off him for a while and give it time to fully heal. Because if there's any damage left in it when he comes back into full work, he's a big, heavy horse. He's spooking all over the place. He's a bit of a nut job, and he will just sort of redo his injury. So, but he's back in now, and provided we can keep him sound, he's one of the most exciting horses in the yard.
Yeah, again, I interviewed Jamie Moore on Bet Racing Nation, and his quote from it was, "Other than Cider Grucci, he's the best horse we've got in the yard by a mile."
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And from his novice hurdling days, you remember him winning at the Aintree Festival, maybe not one of the strongest races, but absolutely routing it before going to Ireland and just losing out to Una 2, which is decent form. And Una 2's back going novice chasing again this year. He looked all over a novice chaser. There's probably a bit more growing left to do in him, but it could be a case that the year off might have done him a lot of good. That it's allowed him to fill out himself.
So actually, some of his other form as well, getting beaten by My Tent or Yours and Tarkan Sawyer Ascot.
Yeah.
Actually, for me, his most impressive piece of form is finishing 10 names second at O'Toy to Gemix, who is quite seriously one of the best horses I think I've seen on his day. And yeah, Eubanks, he's a very nice horse, and you only have to watch any of his races back. He's a chaser. He's always been a chaser, and he just needs to stay sound. So touch wood, you know, as long as he can stay sound, we'll have a good season with him.
Yeah, I remember being surprised that he won at Aintree, and you not so much.
I backed him.
You're almost expectant that he'd win.
I backed him each way at Cheltenham. He got beaten by the new one that day, and just things didn't really pan out for him. Aintree, it'd be more his track, you know, a big, like a galloping track, and he's just a very, very talented horse. We haven't got a lot that can get anywhere near him at home. So
how does he jump at home?
He's getting there. He gets from one side to the other at the moment. He's not done that much schooling over fences because we're just sort of want to leave it until he's fitter and lighter on his feet. You know, you don't want to be schooling them away when they're fat because they're just putting more weight on their legs. And but no, he's so far very pleasing. No better or worse than anything else that we have in anyway.
Fair enough. Yeah, well, I'm personally very excited about seeing you back on his return to the course. And hopefully he comes back fit and well. Your final novice chaser to follow.
My final novice chaser, I'm putting up another one of the horses I look after. We've already seen action over fence this year. Is Night of Pleasure. To me, he was beaten by a decent looking horse on the day. I know it was a toaster novice chase, but what is he called? Gara Halish of Robert Dickens.
Sorry, there's a backstory to this.
Yeah.
I'll do it. I'll say it after.
To me, he looks like the Dickens horse. Looks like quite a quality 2.5 miler. And I think we just got outstayed with Night of Pleasure as well, having his first start over fences, whereas Gara Halish should run in point to points and run respectably. I just think on a track that's going to suit him better, I think he's still got a very big future. He's been a very good hurdler for us, second in a Grade 2, winner of a salmon spray. At home, he works with Cider Grucci. He's the only thing that can. And a couple of times I've worked with it on other horses, and it's actually just completely run away with Jamie or Josh, whoever's on it. It's a monster at home, and it just looks made for a fence. And jumped really well the other day, so I'll be really excited about him. It's just he has a lot of issues, and if we can keep him sound of wind and sound of legs, he'll definitely be winning novice chases.
Yeah, fair enough. The reason I laughed at Gara Halish is that one of my original horses to follow is, and Adams as well, was Ballyhooly Boy. Unfortunately, Ballyhooly Boy is no longer with us. He passed away, I think, late March, early April.
Yeah.
but well, yeah, late on in the jump season last year. But at Glorious Goodwood, we didn't know this at the time, but Callum comes back, and me and Adam were actually talking about Ballyhooly Boy just randomly. And Callum comes back, yeah, no, I spoke to Ballyhooly Boys owners. Yeah, no, they're really excited for the season coming up. And it turns out, after a couple of weeks, a couple of months of convincing, he actually got him mixed up with Gareth Hallish. So good job, Callum. Well done, mate.
I was right. Gareth Hallish jumped like an absolute monster on debut, so
yeah.
Take that card right.
Yeah, well, we'll give you half a point for
Wrong
that.
horse, but they were right.
Sorry.
Half a point.
Oh, good job, Callum. Adam, your final Novice Chaser.
I might as well talk about Urban here. He was the one that I briefly mentioned, but I'll go into a bit more detail. Is the win at Haydock when he jumped them fixed brush hurdles so well, and so I know some people aren't fan of them, but I personally like Haydock's fixed brush hurdles because they're actually on a slant and you actually have to jump over them as opposed to the ones that you can actually brush through. And the way he jumped them was just so slick and accurate for such a big horse, and on really bad ground as well. He was just so impressive. He then beat a horse like in Blake Mount ground. Both of them slogged it out to the line, both true battlers. And then in the Albert Bartlett, he ran well to a stage, and then I'd probably say he wasn't good enough on the day. But I just think 3 miles soft ground fences, 3 miles plus even, over fences, I think a lot of the Northern Novice Chasers, the big ones, I think will go to him. So Urban Him is one that I will definitely be keeping on side, and for the future as well.
That actually leads on to my final Novice Chaser really nicely, because my final Novice Chaser is Blake Mount, who got narrowly beat by Urban Him at Doncaster last time out, and they had a right set too. They were a long way clear of the third, but they both jumped fantastically, and it looked, turning for home, that Urban Him was going to go on and win as easy as you like. It may be a little bit disappointed that he didn't fully go on. He might have just got stuck in the ground, but Blake Mount would not go away, and at the last, it might have even looked like Blake Mount was going to win it. So he's definitely a horse up there with sort of the likes of Urban Him, and I think he could be even better over fences. He just seems like a typical Sue Smith horse, jumps, stays all day, goes to the front, uncomplicated, and he's a really straightforward horse who I feel is going to make a really smashing Novice Chaser. As I say, over hurdles, his jumping was probably his main asset. He seems to stay all day. Ground doesn't really matter to him too much. He's run well on good ground. He's won on soft ground. I actually fancied him in the Albert Bartlett before he got taken out on the morning. I'm not sure what the reason was behind that, but I can see him really developing into a very good Novice Chaser, and he could even possibly be a better horse the year after out of novice ranks. So Blake Mount, he'll probably be about a 3 miler, maybe even a little bit further in time. But he is my last Novice Chaser to follow. The next set of horses that we're going to move on to, we're going to move on to Hurdlers, and then we're going to move on to Chasers. So Hurdlers, anything that isn't a novice or a or juvenile, so basically second season novice or anything upwards. I imagine we might have a few of these going around. Adam, we'll start with you on this one. Your first hurdler to follow.
I'm going to give you a mare who I think if she'd have turned up in the Triumph last year, I think she would have won head in chest. It's a horse called Ante-Post, and I'm quite sad actually that they just want to go down the mares route with her, because I potentially think she could be better than just winning mares hurdles, because the way she won her juveniles, she was so impressive, and the form of them all worked out. I even had a thought, and it may even sound daft, but if she progressed enough, I actually felt that she could have been like an outsider in a champion hurdle, say, because she's got the gears, and she potentially looked very smart. I mean, she'd probably end up in the mares hurdle, but that's if they don't. But then again, it depends whether they go with Annie Power, doesn't it? So I don't know where she'll end up, but I think she's definitely one that will be winning races over the winter, and she's a lovely horse. So Ante-Post is my first one.
Yeah, she cracked her pelvis or something on her last appearance.
Yeah.
I remember on a few occasions before that, Ruby actually rode her forging into town, and he was told afterwards by the lads in behind that she was an absolute machine and a monster in every input to her. So yeah, no, I agree with Ante-Post regarding this season. Just hope that she comes back sound. Callum, your first hurdler to follow.
Well, I'm not going to go with anything out of the blue, to be honest here, because with a champion hurdle, when you look at it, I just think Forheen could be a bit special, and It's obviously very obvious to put him up, and in the end, I'm actually gonna put up the highest rated hurdler at the moment in training, which is more of that, and I just think I'm gonna put him up only for the fact I just think we really haven't seen the best of him, and I think he just could be a real special horse. So he's already rated 169. I was looking at the time form rating. He's £5 higher than anything over hurdles with a P in his name as well. So he just could be incredible, and beating Andy Power, who again I think those two could be the real stalwarts of National Hunt racing for many years to come for me. And he caught my eye firstly when he won at Haydock behind Blue Fashion, which he won off such a slow pace, and then to beat Salubrious on his 4th start, and then to win a World Hurdle on his 5th start, I think takes a special horse. And yeah, I just think he could be. I really expect him to win another World Hurdle and go chasing and rule that roost as well, because I just rate the horse so highly. He's such a battler, and yeah, it just could be a special horse. So of the established hurdlers, I just think I've got to put him up. I just really do like him.
Can I tell a story at this point? A really good story here. I was at Wetherby when he won on handicap debut, rated 130, and I was with someone, Ben Dobson. And he said to me before the race, he pointed him out in the paddock, and he went to me, "This John Joe thing could be absolutely anything." Well, he got that absolutely spot on, because I didn't think at Wetherby when he won nicely, and I thought, he'll definitely go up the ranks. I did not expect him to be winning a World Hurdle, though. So he is an unbelievably good horse, and a special talent that we should look forward to this season.
I think, anyway, me and Adam will be taking him on a little bit later, actually.
Yeah.
And you side with this, because I think you've got him as well.
I can't have anything to beat more of that this season. Like I said, to me, it simply boils down to, it's like we were sat here having the same conversation last year with my tent or yours or Big Bucks. And for me, I just think I can't have Fahim beating more of that. I tipped him up in the Cheltenham tipping competition we did here, and I said he looks like an absolute monster. There's nothing more that I can really say. I just think he's a monster.
Fahim beating more of that?
What am I saying?
I
can't see. No. I mean, I can't see. Oh, sorry. I'm on the wrong wavelength here. I was thinking about one of my other selections. I'll come back to that now later. But more of that. Yeah, I can't see anything coming and beating him. So.
Well, I was going to put up one horse first, but I'm going to go with the horse that I think will put most up to more of that. And in my mind, I think is the only horse that can beat more of that over hurdles this season. That is a horse that I know Adam likes as well, called Beat That of Nicky Henderson. So I saw at Ascot the first time up last season, and I was quite rude about him. In fairness, he didn't look like he was ready to be on a racetrack whatsoever. He wasn't muscled at all. He looked like an absolute skeleton of a horse. He just didn't look right. And obviously he went and won by 10 lengths, beating is it Champagne Rules?
Yeah, Champagne West.
Champagne West, that's it. So Champagne West is a very good horse in his own right. To beat him 10 lengths when you're not ready is absolutely is very good form. He then went to Sandown and should have won, I think it's a grade 2, but he battered the last out of the ground and just got sort of, he lost all momentum at the wrong time and got beat by Kalala Key, who again is a very nice horse. He then improved once more to Romp Home at Aintree. Again, what he beat that day, I'm not sure. I think Cole Harden was back in second. I know Adam's a fan of Cole Harden.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really be holding him up with sort of the best, but he's a good yardstick nonetheless. And then, again, won at Punchestown very nicely. So for me, it was more, the performances were very, very sufficient, and I was very impressed with them, but I was more impressed with his progression throughout the whole season, how he sort of put on muscle. By the end of the season, he's got a completely different figure than the one that he cut at Ascot. So if he's muscled up again and really come on for the summer off, he could be an absolute machine this season. And if he does prove that, then more of that's got a real competitor on his hands this time around. Saying that, more of that is a fantastic hurdler, and you have to give all due respect to the current World Hurdle champion.
I've got to say as well, having sided with more of that, it's going to sound strange, I did see an interview the other day where Barry Garrity reckoned Beat That had every chance of beating more of that, and obviously he's ridden both of them. So,
I think them two, they would really make the 3 mile hurdling division for me if they just had battles this season. And I mean, depending on what either side you're on, it'd be a fantastic race on each occasion to watch. It'd be sort of going back to Denman Quarto Star again. It'd be two sides split, but you just want to see it for horse racing. So, for me, that's one of the most exciting duels that we'll see this season. Hopefully, I think it's fairly certain that he's going to go hurdling, but hopefully he does stay hurdling and doesn't let him go novice chasing. Like an idiot.
What an anti-climax that would be. You've given him such a talking up for going over hurdles. I've seen so many conflicting reports, but I just hope he stays hurdling. It gives it some competitive nature in the sport. I mean, as Callum made the point the other day, and I'll let him expand on it, but he says that trainers and owners are scared. They can be scared of just one horse, and it's a bit like last year. Cider Grugy, fair play to them for actually having a go at Sprinter Sacre. I know Sprinter Sacre wasn't right at Kempton, but they were willing to take him on, which was great. I mean, we didn't really get a race, but the sire reaped the rewards last season, so yeah.
We all have our views on whether thoughts Sprinter Sacre was right or not.
We won't elaborate into that, of course.
No.
Adam, hurdler to follow once more, please.
Well, you've mentioned Beat That, so I won't mention him. This horse is technically, at this moment in time as we speak, a novice, and he goes for the Persian War on Saturday. I know Luke agrees with me on this. It's a horse called Sunder Burley.
I think everyone agrees with this.
Yes. Well, when I'd heard about this horse going to Nicky Henderson's, I thought I'll do a bit of research to see if I can find anything out about him. And I went on Twitter, I typed his name in, and a race came up from Otoy, and not his first one. His first one, he got absolutely taken out. I think half the field got taken out. But his second run, he jumped the last in about third or fourth, and he's literally sprinted to the finish. Now, there's a common misconception that Otoy is a flat track. It's actually not. It's actually going uphill. And the way he did it, he didn't beat very much, but in the style he did it, it looked of a very good horse. And he then went to Newton Abbot on debut on good ground, and he just toyed with a 125 rated rival. Now, that rival may not have merited the mark of 125, but the manner in which he did it it's just so impressive. And he goes for the Persian War, then loses his novice status, and he's in that category. Yeah, I could have put him in the dark horse category, but I've got a lack of hurdlers. I just had to stick him in this category, and I think he could be something very good. So yeah. I was going to mention Cole Harden as well, but I think they've had a change in plan, and I think they're going chasing with him now. I think it might have been him that was talking about Warren Greatrex the other day, so I don't know.
The thing with Sunday Burley, I think we'd all agree that he's a fantastic. Well, he looks a fantastic prospect. He's got a mark of 142 after winning at Newton Abbot, which, okay, you can take his French form into account, but he beat a horse called Val d'Arc, who is no world beater. He's a decent horse in his own right, but a mark of 142 is very, very steep. If he wins the Persian War, his only choice is to really go and take on the big boys. In earnest, isn't it? I mean, that's probably too high of a handicap mark for a horse so inexperienced as himself. So,
I agree with that.
Yeah, that would be the only worry I'd have with Sunday Burley. But saying that, I think he's got a huge engine. He jumps more than well enough. Callum, your second hurdler to follow.
Yeah. I know you really rate this horse, Luke, and sorry if I've nicked it. But it's trained by Nicky Henderson, so you might know what I was trying to talk about. It's Vaniteur.
Oh, you arse!
Yes, you go for that. Yeah, again, I'm always one for Nicky Henderson. When he has a horse that runs in the Supreme Novices, I mean, he's not won the race, in fact, in my lifetime, which is quite staggering. I think he won it in '93, I think, so just as I was born. Just staggering for a trainer of Nicky Henderson's quality. And then you think of the horses that he's had beaten in the race. On the top of my head, Sprinter Sacre, Darland, Spirit Sun, horses like that.
My Tent or Yours.
My Tent or Yours. These are top class horses. So what I like about Henderson is he brings along his horses quite steadily, and he really gets the best out of them in the future. And then this horse, he just seems to have such an engine. And the fact, again, he's placed in the Supreme last year. Very impressive when he ran over 2 mile 3 at Doncaster. Jumped a lot better that day and jumped well actually in the Supreme, or better than the Supreme that he did beforehand in his races before. He's off 147 at the moment. I think they're going to go down the handicap route over hurdles, and he's just the kind of horse that's going to be I think, winning one of those races and then become a genuine champion hurdle candidate. And especially seeing this My Tent or Yours is out for the season as well, there's an ideal placement for him there. So I think he's one that's a real dark horse for the champion hurdle, even though, you know, Forheen and Jet Ski are the real standouts for me. But Vanity, I think, could be a surprise package.
I've been screwed over twice with this. You've taken Via Sundown as a novice chaser. I've got him in a different category. You've taken Vanity as a hurdler. I've got him in a handicapper category. So
I took Sunday Burley off you as well, so you've been screwed over.
I didn't actually have I didn't have Sunday Burley in my lot, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I didn't. I like your horse, but I didn't actually have him in my horses to follow. Right, your next hurdler to follow.
Right. Just to explain my slip of the tongue with Faheen earlier, my other sort of established hurdler to follow is the new one. For me, he was the real hard luck story in the champion hurdle. Everyone saw it.
I can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
Don't. It hurts. It still hurts.
And to me, Jeski only won the race because Ruby was trying to get My Tent or Yours beat. If you watch it the whole way, Ruby's just looking over his shoulder thinking, how can I shut the door on AP? How can I shut the door on AP? And he's giving Jeski a beautiful run round the inside, completely uninterrupted. And for me, that's how he won the race. So if we take it from that, the new one was the best horse in that champion hurdle. My view is that I can't see anything new coming and rivaling the new one, personally. I think a couple of people were underwhelmed by his comeback the other day. To be honest, he got there. He absolutely hammered the last, and he's still gone away like he wasn't really out of third gear. To be honest, just because he hasn't won by 20 lengths on the bridle doesn't mean. Like I saw a few people who were there as well who said he looked like he might need it. So
I thought he looked fantastic.
For me,
I was there. So.
For me, I don't know. He's just the best 2-mile hurdler in training, and I can't see anything improving past him.
I'm a big fan of the new one. It's just he's one of the ones that sort of lingers. Is he really genuinely fast enough for a truly run champion hurdle? Possibly, yeah.
I think the ground he made up in the champion hurdle, he has to be.
Yeah, it's fair. I think people took Sam Twiston-Davis's ride on him about the wrong way last year. Obviously, he got almost brought down by the fatal fall of Al Connor.
Yeah.
But then Sam, I think, tried to give him a breather coming down the hill, and he didn't really ask him to go forward. People say he got outpaced at that point, which I think is absolute nonsense.
He hasn't asked him to go forward because he's had to make up so much ground. You can't do it all in one go.
Yeah.
No horse can do that, especially not in the champion hurdle.
No.
Especially not at just in any race at Cheltenham. I think that's all he's tried to do is just look after him a bit and try to see if he can win despite that. And as it happened, he couldn't. But I said the amount of ground he made up, he has to be quick enough to win a champion hurdle.
Yeah, that's more fair. And you're in luck this year because in the Neptune, he was my lay of the festival.
Yeah.
Last year was my nap of the festival, and this year he's not going to be either. So he can go and win this year because I'm not napping.
I might have been able to take him on with My Tent or Yours, but he's out for the season, and that's for me that makes you on the winner of a champion hurdle.
Yeah. Well, I am going to take the new one on. To probably be wrong again this year, but I'm taking him with Faheen, who, since he won the Neptune last year, I think I turned to Adam at the time and said that's your champion hurdle winner for next year, and he laughed at me at the time. Actually,
I didn't laugh at you. I sort of looked at you ponderously and went, "He doesn't jump hurdles well enough." And then
my point to back that up is that the faster Faheen goes, the better he jumps. You could argue in the Neptune that he was travelling fast enough at the end, and he still battered 3 of the last 4. But however, he went to Punchestown, travelled probably his own pace. In fairness to sort of anyone that's against Faheen, but he jumped fantastically all the way around and beat a pretty classy field of novices by about 20 lengths, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I think that performance is absolutely devastating. If he can keep that form at that level, I think he's a 2-miler out and out. Maybe in time he might get a bit further, but for people saying that he's going to win a Gold Cup in the future, I'd be really sceptical about that and not too sure. But I just think he's an absolute tank. I think he's got more speed than the new one, probably the same sort of in stamina regards.
Yeah.
But I just think he could do the new one for a bit of tow at the wrong time, which I wouldn't say is unfair to say.
Yeah, I disagree, but that's mine.
Well, it's the thing that
To me, he's not. I know he's one of Neptune, but I don't think it makes him a slow horse.
No.
Honestly, I think the new one's absolutely rapid.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying the new one's slow.
No,
but I'm just
I
saying,
know what you mean. I know what you mean.
I can't remember who it was at the timing. It's probably Simon Rowlands, but the times in comparison, Votor and Faheen's times from the top of the hill at Cheltenham last year were a few milliseconds out. Pretty much the same. And for Faheen to do that while smacking 2 of the last 3,
and racing over further.
Yeah, I'm racing over further. Well, let's be fair, didn't Votor smack the third last start in the way?
He didn't smack it, he just dived it a little bit.
Yeah.
He didn't jump it cleanly.
He had a little step and just sort of wrapped the top hard, didn't he?
Yeah, I think Faheen probably did more damage to himself and the hurdle. Votor just sort of stepped at it. He didn't lose too much momentum, but I completely get what you're saying with that. But I really, really like Faheen, if you haven't already guessed that. But we'll be taking you on throughout this season, hopefully. Right, how many more hurdlers have we got left, guys?
No,
That's it for me.
I've just got one I want to mention. I chucked him in the hurdlers. I'm not 100% sure what he's doing this year. You certainly won't see him until later on in the season. It's our EBF final winner, Brave Vic. Just a lovely horse. Looks all over. To be fair, he's quite a chasing type, but he's a brilliant jumper of a hurdle. And I say he's won an EBF final. It looks quite well handicapped now. You won't see him until the back end of the season, but I can see him picking up a nice prize for sure again.
I think I backed him in every single start last year except for that ABF final.
20 to 1.
Yeah, the one where he actually went off a price is 28 in the morning, I have you know.
Yeah.
But I'm not bitter of that whatsoever. We're going to move on to Chasers to follow now. As always, on OnTheOtherHoof, if you've got any questions about Chasers to follow, if you've got any Chasers to follow yourself, please send them in and we will read them out at the end of the show. Callum, your first Chaser to follow, please.
Yeah, I mean, I went pretty obvious with more of that, and I'm going to go more left field here and go for Simon Sig, who, again, he's a horse that, I mean, there's been a lot about him and Sprinter Sacre in the past. You know, they both climbed the ranks at a similar time, and honestly, I've rated Simon Sig just as high, if not higher, than Sprinter Sacre in his prime. I just think the horse he works unbelievably well at home. I spoke to somebody from that I know that has connections with Henderson Yard, and they said that the horse scoped so dirty when he won the Arkle that majority of horses wouldn't even finish a race, never mind win an Arkle. And he wasn't impressive that day. He jumped badly, but he still won. And the way he won his races previously, I just think he could be, again, a special horse. And it was a shame he missed all of last season out. It's good to see that he's back, hopefully, go for the Peterborough Chase. And if Simon Sig is on form and turns up, then I don't see what will beat him in a King George. And I think that's the sort of race that we'll ideally see him in. Looking at Cheltenham, I don't know what he'd go for. I'm not sure I would really want to see him in a Gold Cup, but we'll see. But yeah, he's the horse I'm most looking forward to seeing this season by a country mile. I would just love to see him prove that he's a special horse, and I think he will.
I have a feeling that won't be the last time you mention him on this show as well. I think we might get a mention a bit later on him. George, we'll go for your first chaser to follow for the season.
My first chaser to follow is a fairly obvious one. Is Border Success.
Adam's not going to like that.
I'm happy.
To me, the Arkle looks a poor race. All of them have run and been beaten since, except Champagne Fever. And Border Success, he's been handled really softly, just partly due to a few jumping issues to start off with, and partly due to soundness issues. But God, at Aintree he was unbelievable. His jumping was spot on. He beat Trifolium by further than Western Warhorse did at Cheltenham. And just to me, I think we've got to be looking to something like Border Success to come up from the novice ranks to take on the big boys at the top level. Because, well, I don't want him to, but
he can sit just behind the top level, right?
He's about all I can see coming and taking him on anyway.
I'm going to mention one a little bit later that might, maybe, might come on.
You're not going to say something stupid like Sprinter Sacre, are you?
No, God. Not that hound, no. Adam, I get the feeling he's just stolen one of yours.
Well, he's stolen it, but he said different things to what I'm going to say, so I'm not particularly bothered. Now, last season, if there was a horse I got wrong at the start of the season, it was him. I was so worried about him going chasing, just because how he'd been over hurdles. And the way he jumped on Chase debut at Chepstow, so I turned to Michael as women and I went, well, I got that one wrong, didn't I? And I said that he could go
Not for the first.
Not for the first time, it won't be the last time either. But then, I didn't, well, I knew he'd be good over fences, but I didn't expect him to improve as much as he did. I mean, he won 5 out of 8 starts, culminating with his Aintree win, and his fast, slick jumping is one of his huge assets. I've got no issues with him going to Cheltenham. I mean, I know his record there's not very good, but he would have won the Novice Chase in which he fell, and it was because of a low sun he fell 2 out, and it was a horrible fall as well. And I really think he is the real, I think he's the real deal. And I know that his lad, Steve Ez, has watched our show before, and I wish him and the team the best of luck with him this season. I think they're either going to start in the Holden Gold Cup or the Slur. I prefer them to go for the Slur, because I think he could win that. I mean, if Side Grugy turns up, I think Side Grugy is a phenomenal horse, and we should star him next year. What?
He's got George sitting there. Nah.
He doesn't want to go for the Schlur.
Sire doesn't act around Cheltenham anyway, it's fine.
Doesn't want to go for the
He only won
whole.
a championships. It's true, he doesn't act around Jordan, but he's just that.
Yeah, it's class though. It's a class angle. If a horse is classy enough, they'll do it in conditions that they're not exactly suited to. With
anything serious, take them on.
But one other thing I just want to say before I finish is that the quote that Alan King came out with is probably what the worry I had was. He said that Aintree, that fences have made a man of him, and that was probably my worry about him, is that he wouldn't jump fences because of how timid he was, say, over hurdles, but fences, and I think he can make it to the very top.
Yeah, well, some of us were right about Border Success making into a chaser from the very start, so... Yeah. No names at all. My first chaser to follow is going to be one that I mentioned last year. It was one of my more successful ones, and when I say more successful ones, I mean my only successful one of last season, and that's Jackadam, who I think he won a lot of people over last season. He is a big brute of a horse. He won, I think, 2 Novice Chasers, then got sent to Cheltenham. I didn't want him to go to Cheltenham whatsoever because I thought it was a year too early. However, he fell at the top of the hill, but surprised me with the way that he travelled and also the way that he jumped with such awesome fluency. I didn't expect that whatsoever. And Richie in a recent at the races interview said that's the one he's most gutted about losing or not winning. Well, that's the race he's most gutted about not winning at Cheltenham. He said he was travelling so well at the top of the hill and he still loses sleep over that. So for me, that actually sticks out quite a bit because he was asked about Champagne Fever as well. So for me, Jackadam is much better than he showed last year. I think he's going to be much better this season after as well. The starting point that's been hinted at this year is the Hennessy. I think he's off a mark of 147, which, okay, for a 5-year-old, a late season 5-year-old, isn't really the most lenient of marks. However, if Jackadam is going to make up into a Gold Cup horse, which I think he is, he really has to be running a big race off 147. And again, if Bobsworth runs in the race, then his weight is going to be boosted right down. For a mark of 147, talking in sort of the 10 stone area, a little bit higher than that obviously, but I genuinely think he could, maybe not this season, make up into a Gold Cup contender, but however, if he did turn up in a Gold Cup, I would not be against him, and he's a big enough price for it at the moment, so he's one that's very exciting for me over the next couple of seasons probably. That's Jackadam for Willie Mullins and Richie. Callum, I'll come to you for your second chaser to follow.
Yeah, a horse of Harry Fry's, Vukovar, who hasn't raced too much and didn't have many races last season, but I think I know Cheltenham came too early for him and it was a bit of a culture shock for him and he was well beaten. Before then he created a real impression, and horse has come over from France, jumps really well, has a real engine on him, and I know for a fact that they really rate this horse and could potentially be a Grade 1 star. He starts in the Haldon Gold Cup at Exeter. likely face Q Card in that, but he'd be getting about £20 from Q Card, and so I would expect him to have a real say in that. Off a mark of 152, I mean, he's the kind of horse I think, likewise, something like the Paddy Power Gold Cup or even the Hennessy would be right up his street. I don't know if they're going to take into that, because I like how Harry Fry brings along his horses and really gets the best out of them. And he's the kind of horse I think will be a stalwart for him, because at this stage he hasn't had that real major horse. I know he had Rock on Ruby, but that's a horse that he inherited from Paul Nicholls, and obviously, you know, he trained him anyway, not in his name, but this is the first real horse that he's had from the start, and could potentially build up into a top class prospect. So yeah, Vukovar for me, I think he could be very good.
Yeah, he's definitely an exposed one for me. I imagine we're going to get one from you now that we've spoke about a little bit already on this show. Are we going to get Sire?
It goes without saying, really. It's not actually on my list.
He's not on your...
It goes without saying.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I go more with the staying division. One of my tips from last year, who ran well for the season, was Morning Assembly. He's third in the RSA. It looks to me a weak Gold Cup division at the moment, weak 3-mile chasing division. He's tight for me to keep improving. He's by Shantou. He's only get better with age, and he's not really had that many starts, to be honest. I can see him really making up into a Gold Cup contender this year.
Yeah, I think he's been hinted maybe starting off in the Hennessy as well, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
a handicap mark of 149, he could be very... There's a lot of second season novices, and I like this bunch of novices coming up. I really think that they could make a mark this season. I can't wait for the Hennessy.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Actually, well, especially even with Jacadam, as I just mentioned as well. Adam, your next chaser to follow.
Oh, I really struggle with this category, if I'm being honest. It's just because the established lot, there are holes in so many of them. And this horse I'm going to put up, I've already put up about a week ago, and I think he's a likely winner of the Hennessy, and it's a horse called Smad Place, who should have won on Chase debut at Huntingdon, but for spectacularly unseating Robert Thornton at the last. I'll wait for Callum now, I'll wait for a reaction. He then won at Exeter and jumped really well that day. Went to Newbury on very testing ground and beat Sam Winner, and I was worried about him in the RSA that run would have bottomed him. And I'd said earlier in the year that I thought he'd have a right chance in the RSA, and he very nearly won. He travelled, he jumped beautifully, and he was just outdone by O'Phalen's Boy, who I would have put up in the video, but unfortunately I don't think we're going to see him this year. But I'm going to put Smad Place in because I think he's a great jumper. I think the Hennessy's a great starting point for him because he goes well fresh. We'll see what happens after that, but he doesn't have to improve much, I don't think, to make him the World Cup horse. And he's got the festival form in the book, having been placed twice in a Stayers Hurdle, or World Hurdle, and placed in RSA. And he doesn't have to improve much to make him to a Gold Cup contender for me. So Smad Place is one that I'm quite sweet on for the season.
Yeah, I'm going to use a quote from you earlier about Border Success chasing making a man of him. My next one is definitely that sort of quote definitely applies to him as well. Next Sensation, who started off his chasing career last season off a mark of 105 at Plumpton, absolutely bolted off of that, and he ended last season running off a mark of 145 at Aintree behind Border Success. He was over the top by that point, and he's probably remembered for, again, much like Gil Gambara earlier, for the wrong reasons of getting caught in the final strides up the Cheltenham Hill in the Grand Annual. Richard Johnson got off of him that day and said he's never gone faster on a horse, period. And it does annoy you slightly, because Next Sensation was one of my main bets of the festival, and we had to wait until a lot for it. However, you won't see a horse jump better around Cheltenham and travel with such awesome fluency. I thought he was going to get caught as they were coming sort of down the hill and sort of aiming up at the third last, and then he kicked again, and his jumping stood up once more at the second last and the last. I thought maybe he might just grind it out in front, but he got caught late on by Savello and two others. Then Claret Cloak was one of them as well.
Yeah, that bunt line.
Yeah, and their bunt line. He's still not unexposed. There's still a bit more to him, I think. There's a bit more progression. He's 7. And Michael Skidmore said he thinks he's done really well over the summer. If he can settle in a race, then he could be a really, really good horse. But my only worry is he's only got one way of running, and that's from the front. And don't get me wrong, his jumping's fantastic. It's spectacular to watch. However, if he did win, he's entered on Saturday at Chepstow. If he won that and his handicap mark went on, he'd have he wouldn't have many choices but to take on Side Grugy and Sprinter Sacra. So he could just be a sitting duck for them. Because I know Sire enjoys having a horse to aim at.
Oh, yeah.
It could just be that Next Sensation is a sitting duck for a better horse. It depends how much improvement he's going to show this season.
He's this year's Cato Stone.
Cool to hell. I've gone back further. I've gone back to sort of comparing him to Sanctuaire, who I know me and Callum were very bullish on to beat Sprinter Sacra in Tingle Creek, and it turned out that he was just an absolute sitting duck for him. I am proud of my ability to Sanctuaire if it didn't go right, but it could just be the same horse. It's a completely different build to Sanctuaire. Sanctuaire was very light. Next Sensation is a really big, strong, strapping individual. If he does need to settle on the front end, if he does, and his jumping holds up in the same sort of fluency as it was last year, he could be a really exciting horse for 2 mile chases this year. And I'm really excited about seeing him, hopefully, this Saturday at Chepstow. How many chases have we got left to talk about, guys?
None.
None.
We need to move on.
Yeah. Just quickly, one of my memories of the festival is they jumped the ditch 6 out and Luke just goes, go on! 20 lengths clear at the top of the hill. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, he's going to...
I wasn't excited whatsoever. Have you got one more chase to follow?
I just really had just the couple to mention. Like, for me, I'm very excited about Sir Deschamps coming back again. Like I said, I think it's a weak 3 mile chase division and on good ground. I'm a bit disappointed about the whole Gigginstown situation because I thought Davy Russell rode the horse like no one else. But good horse, a good horse, whoever's on it. But I'll be looking forward to him. And I still think I keep going about how bad the Gold Cup it was, but Lord Windermere for me is still a good horse. Yeah. He's come from nowhere to pick them all up. Sure, they might all have run bad, but he's come from nowhere to do it. So for me, he's still a good horse. And like I said, Side Grugy just goes without saying.
Right, we've got the main sort of horses of the season out of the way. We've got some handicappers to come now. We'll try and get through them quickly, as we are aware the video is going on quite long as it did last year. Adam, your first handicapper to follow.
First handicapper to follow, right. I'm going to give you a Dr. Richard Newland horse. He's called Boon Doomer, and he won at Chepstow, not Saturday gone, the Saturday before, and he did it in the manner of such an impressive horse. He's entered up on Saturday in the Silver Trophy, but I'd rather they wait for the Paddy Power meeting because there's a valuable intermediate handicap hurdle which has been won by some very good horses, the likes of Punchestown. I don't think what won it last year. Kilala Key ran in it last year. I'm trying to remember what won it. Top of the Cracker won it last year. I think he'd be the type of horse that could go into that race and then improve further from that. So Boon Doomer's one to definitely keep on the right side of in handicap hurdles this year, around 2.5 miles.
Yeah, I remember him winning very impressively the other day. George, a handicapper to follow from you?
It's one of Gary's. It's Reblis to simply hopefully go and do the same as he did last year, provided he doesn't run into Veer Sundown in the Sussex and Sussex National. He sort of did his winning quite early on the season. He's already back down to a workable mark. He actually ran quite well at Cheltenham last time out on ground that was much too fast. He's back down to quite a nice mark again. I can see him doing the same as he did last year.
Yeah, I have been bombarded with my handicappers to follow because you took Fire Sundown and Callum took Vanateur. Vanateur will probably make into a better horse than a handicapper. So first up for me, I'm going to go for Urban de Civlo, who has 2 ratings. Over hurdles, he's rated 138. Over fences, he's rated 135. He'd probably be more of a chaser to go with this year. I joked to Adam at Cheltenham last season, he's the best horse in training, he just doesn't want to be. He gave the field a 20-length head start in the Martin Pipe and led turning for home. And to do that at Cheltenham, he made such a fast move coming down the hill. That surely just put pay to his chances. He still only finished 7.5 lengths behind Don Poli, but if he can rechannel his psychoticness, I'm going to put it as, and actually behave himself when he's on the racecourse and put 100% in, he's a much better horse than 135 or let's say 138 over hurdles, and he could be a really nice horse for this season as long as he can keep his mind on the game. Callum, a handicapper for you?
Well, I've only got two, and I'll probably just mention both at the same time because they both ran in the same race at Cheltenham, and it's that Rewards for Racing handicap, the last race on the Tuesday. The winner, firstly, Present View, ran the other day at Cheltenham over hurdles. I thought ran an absolute stormer. He's just really progressing well over fences. I was really impressed when he won at the festival, and he's just the kind of horse that I think will be ideal for a Paddy Power Gold Cup, and hopefully that's his aim. And then I haven't mentioned a Charlie Longston horse yet, so here's the first one. I'm going to mention him again, which is Pendra, who I'm so surprised if he doesn't win a big handicap this year. He's still only rated 139. He's progressed considerably over the summer, sorry, and it didn't really stay, well, it didn't stay the Irish Grand National trip, but a race like the United House Gold Cup's been targeted as a potential aim early on in the season. And like I said, a track like Ascot over that sort of trip, 3 miles or so, 3 miles too, I think would be ideal for him. And I'd just be very, very surprised if you don't see him winning a big handicap this season. So they're two for me, Present View and Pendra.
Yeah, I think you've actually stolen. George had Pendra as well down on his list, so we can make that 2 for Pendra. Adam, a handicap to follow from you?
Following on from the Longston theme, me and Callum both agree on this horse. He mentioned, when I was writing up my list of horses to follow, I was trying to think of handicappers, and he came up, and this horse was Up to Something. Now, my idea for him was, I thought, because he jumped so well, a race over the Grand National fences would suit him. And then Callum goes, oh, Up to Something's been muted for the Grand Sefton. I thought, perfect, there we go, a horse for the video. So I'm going to say something like the Grand Sefton would be a type of race that Up to Something would excel in. He was second to Wonderful Charm at Newbury, and then he ran well enough at the festival, but he was a big price that day, and he was really overpriced, and he ran well for a long way, and then just got outpaced on the turn for home. I just think a course like Aintree would suit him ideally, and I think the Grand Sefton would be an ideal target.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. I think we had Jamie Brownlow tweeting in saying he liked Up to Something. He literally just done it as well, so Up to Something with Charlie Longston. So a few people liking him. Another handicap to follow from you, George?
My other one is, obviously I had Pendra. Another JP McManus horse is Cantlow.
Oh no!
Oh my god!
Okay. What is your aim for Cantlow for the season?
I'm not the trainer, but I just, to be honest, he's a talented horse off a workable mark, and I'd half think about stepping him up in trip. But
Okay, Adam is bursting at the moment.
Yes!
He thinks he's a Grand National horse all
I
over.
do.
I would be thinking about stepping him up in trip. I don't know about the Grand National, because certainly on his mark, I don't think I'm going to say something stupid now. The Grand National, because it's run on firmer ground these days and the fences are smaller, I'd look at this as more of a sort of, if they were going to travel it, sort of an Ida chase or something like that.
Scottish National, something like that.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Scottish National, Welsh, whatever. Just to me, he's got a workable mark, and you'd hope they'll put good juice in one of these big handicaps. He did look after he had his fall. After his fall at the festival, he looked like he was given a couple of confidence boosters. Switch back to hurdles, and given what was in the end a fairly quiet run over fences. And I could see him picking up a big pot this year.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I agree with the fact that he's very talented. National, not so sure, Adam. I have my own. Well, he's very much a stayer in the making. And you mentioned the Ida Chase. I think the Ida Chase is tailor-made for a horse called Pinarolo of Sue Smith's, and I only put him in really because Ballyhooly Boy obviously isn't around anymore. He was his replacement. I've been waiting for so long for him to run in a handicap chase, and he finally did at Catterick last year. At one point, I didn't think he was going to make it back to track after suffering an injury at Carlisle. However, he was nursed back to health. He came back and he finished third behind Many Clouds and also Indian Castle. That form is very, very good for a 3-runner novice chase around Wetherby. Next time out, though, he came out at Catterick and absolutely bolted up off a mark of 1-1-2. I think he beat a horse called Mitchell's Way that day, and Mitchell's Way has, I think, won more than once since then. He then also won a much better race off 1-2-7. Edmund Keane, I think, was in that race. Is a highly touted horse of David Pipes. So that was a much better performance. Then he went on sort of faster ground, and it's not really fast ground at all because it was good to soft. I think it was Midlands National Day, and he got pulled up behind Bold Chief. However, he wasn't allowed to dominate that day, and I just think he sulked. And then again at Ayr, which I wouldn't have run him there. I think he was over the top by that point. And again, pulled up. The reason I say the Ida Chase is because it should be easy enough to dominate. It's not really too much. They don't really go too fast in it. And also, he'll get his soft ground. I just think he stays all day. He jumps absolutely brilliantly. I think he's tailor-made for a race like that. Maybe even the Scottish National if he comes up soft. However, it's much harder to lead there. But I think Pinerolo still remains on a workable mark. He's off a mark of 133 now. So I think he's still got a lot of ability to come from there. How many handicappers to follow have we got left, guys?
I've got 2. I'll give you 2.
Right.
But I'll talk about them at once. I will mention Cantlow, but I'll mention him second. The horse I'm going to mention is a novice, and he's yet to get a mark. He's called Bandit Country, and I just think he's a work in progress. He ran really well behind, is it Shelfer? Was it? No, Relentless Dreamer, actually. He's second in the Novice Hurdle, the second division of Novice Hurdle at Chepstow. That was a Rebecca Curtis horse who was at the bumper form with Fletcher's Fire and Relic Rock. I just think he's a work in progress. Richard McClellan wasn't very hard on him. I just think they're going to get 3 runs, get a handicap mark, and I think he could be very dangerous. I'd better explain my reasoning for Cantlow, because Luke and Callum think I'm crazy. A lot of people think I'm crazy, right?
Not necessarily.
His profile reminds me of 2 JP horses, Don't Push It and Sunny Hill Boy, and they both. The reason it is because they're both a form of the shorter distances. Sunny Hill Boy actually relates more to him because he actually fell in the same race as Sunny Hill Boy, and they both then went to the Irish National. The only slight issue with Cantlow is he needs to be qualified. I'm shocked that he's not even been in the first 4 of the 3 miles over fences yet. But his pedigree is interesting because his half-brother's a horse called Darkness who couldn't jump fences but was a strong stayer, I'll give him that, and a Grade 1 winner of the fences at Sandown in the Felton. I just think that he's a type of horse that he's on a mark that he could still win a Grand National off that mark. And with the connections, JP loves to have runners in the Grand National. I just think that would be a potential target for him. And have a quiet season, lead him up to there, could even run over hurdles a couple of times. And it's one that the more I talk about it, the more convinced I am. And if he does win the Grand National, I'll be so happy. And if he falls at the first fence, well, it's happened before.
What would you say?
Yeah. Point Barrow. Oh. I don't know.
George, have you only got any other handicaps to follow?
Those are my 3.
Those were 3. Right, okay, so we move on to the final segment, which is Dark Horse, that we're going to go through very quickly. Callum, your first Dark Horse.
I'm only going to put one up, to be honest, at this stage. A horse, probably one that I'm, as a young horse, but one I'm really excited about quite a long time into the future. And he ran at the weekend, is Vivaldi Collonge, who I wasn't really sure what category to put him in, but I probably expect him to stay novice hurdling this year and potentially go for the Albert Bartlett. But he's by Dom Alco, who Paul Nicholls does so well with as a sire. And considering the horses that have been sired by Dom Alco, Silvagnac Conti, Neptune Collonge, Alpha Off, Grand Cru, Union East, they're all chasers, and he's just going to be a proper chaser in time, and he's a real strong travelling type that probably doesn't finish his races just as well yet. And he's just a horse in the future I think will be very, very good. And so he's not a horse for this season necessarily, but he's one that I would just advise everyone to put in their trackers and really follow in the next few years, because I do think he's going to make a proper chaser. I'm quite sweet on him in the future. I think he could be high class.
Yeah, I've never seen anyone move so fast when you realised that he was running when we were at Ascot on Saturday. You covered that 20 yards between TV and our table very quickly.
And then he got headed, so I was like, no.
Then he trudged back over. Adam, your first Dark Horse.
I've only got 2, so I'll put them together.
If you do both, yeah.
Okay. They're both trained by Paul Nicholls, and the first one is a mare called Tara Point, who won a bumper at Taunton in such impressive style. And I toyed about putting her in my written preview, but I thought, no, she'll be really obvious and everyone will write about her, so I left her. And then I read all these previews and she's not mentioned hardly. And the way she won that bumper, Harry Derham pressed the button and she went 4 lengths clear immediately, turns around, it's like, we may as well just canter home, and she won by 9 lengths. And the second looked more than useful as well. So she would probably go novice hurdling, and she could pretty easily dominate Mare's Novice Hurdles. And the second one is also trained by Paul Nichols and also ran at Taunton. He's called the Outlaw, and he looked very green on debut. And I don't know what the plan is. So they did mention the listed bumper at the Paddy Power meeting, which wouldn't be a bad race to go for, I don't think. But I think he is a long-term, definitely a long-term plan with him. And I think the listed Paddy Power bumper would suit him. And then he can go novice hurdling. So, yeah, he'd be another horse to put up as well.
Yeah, fair enough. You got any dark horses for us to follow?
Yeah, mine are a bit all or nothing. I got two fallen stars here. We got one of whom we saw, both of whom we saw run at the weekend actually. I was really impressed by the comeback of Starlight.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
I've actually have a look at those.
I was going to bring them up. They're disgusting stars.
They're not even Starlight socks, but yeah,
they're close enough.
They're I was really impressed with his comeback. He's a horse I've always liked. It's great to see him enjoying his racing again. And I just think he may well just pop up somewhere in something like he did in that was it the pony racing race, and Tom Cannon rode him.
Yeah.
Pony racing race.
You have to have ridden in a pony race.
Okay.
In at least one pony race to ride in it. He went and won it at Cheltenham. I think he could well pop up in a decent little pot this season. Yeah. The other star is Megastar, who
oh no.
He looked to need his seasonal reappearance a lot, but in general, he's in the form of his life. He's like we've never had him before. He's sound. He's ready to go. I just can't wait to hopefully see him come back to some of his old form, which we didn't see when he went chasing because he was having his pelvis problem was already causing him problems when he went chasing. So you can write all of that off. And my third one, this is really all or nothing, is if it comes to England, Benito de Burle.
Is he
incredibly impressive in France, was it?
Is he in tomorrow at Exeter?
No, that's Marito de Burle.
Close enough.
I know who Joyce is going on about.
Yeah. Bonito de Burle won at Auteuil 2 weeks ago, winning the same Grade 2 Novice Hurdlers being won by Long Run, Big Fox, Cato Star, and he looked incredible. I very rarely see a horse put, especially at Auteuil, like French racing, everyone knows it. They hack and then they sprint, and yet he had the entire field put to bed going down the back straight at Auteuil, which is a solid 4 or 5 furlongs from home. I've never seen a performance quite like that. The fact that the part owner has horses with Martin Todhunter, hopefully we'll see him in England at some point, and when we do, he could well be very special.
I agree with that. You did mention Starlock as well. I'm happy with that. I picked him up from the weekend. First dark horse to follow is one that you'll know quite a bit about in Puishka du Pas. I remember Hattie Fuller tweeted us in a while ago, 3 or 4 days ago, that's her one horse to follow for the season. There was a nice bumper horse last year, won very nicely on debut and battling through on the rail, almost got squeezed out of things, but showed a good sort of mental ability to battle his way out and then go on and really put the race to bed in a matter of strides. He then got really messed about at Aintree, courtesy, I think it was Modus that really screwed him over about 3 times in the race, but when he got into the clear, he stayed on once again, and he only finished 12 lengths behind Ballybodley, which I think was a decent effort, saying how the race panned out for him. And most recently, we've seen him get beaten quite readily by a horse of Charlie Longton's called No Manolito. However, for me, Fontwell isn't his track whatsoever, and he'll be a much better horse for a step-up in trip, I think.
Fontwell's not his track at all, and Jamie did say he thought he got beaten by a very, very good horse that day.
Well, when I spoke to Jamie on Various Nation, he put the only horse he put up for the season to follow was No Manolito. Yeah. So he didn't put up a Gary's horse at all.
He couldn't. I don't think he could believe he got beaten that day. He just came back in saying that horse must be an absolute machine.
Yeah.
And Puishka du Pas himself, he's every inch the chaser. Like you saw him in Newbury, he didn't even know where he was, and he still managed to win. I can't remember how far, but.
It was 3-4 lengths is enough.
Yeah, he didn't even know where he was. He'll be better when he goes chasing, but you'd like to certainly see him win a couple of novice hurdles this year.
Yeah.
He could well need a breathing operation at the end of the year.
Yeah.
It could well be a tongue tie will do the trick for now.
Callum, have you got a line from Charlie Longton's yard about No Manolito at all?
Yeah, they don't really know what to expect from him yet, but obviously he's quite stoutly bred. So I was a bit disappointed he didn't actually parade when I went there for the Owners' Day in September. So I don't know if he's around at the moment, but I can't really say much more than that, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair. I haven't actually heard anything about him on sort of the off season. The final horse that we're going to mention on the programme is a horse of Alan King's called Fine Words, who I saw at Kempton last season when behind Captain Cutter, who sadly is no longer with us. But he's one of the best looking horses that you'll see. However, he's a case of he doesn't respect his hurdles whatsoever. He's too big and he just kicks them out of the way. And he may also lack a gear, which obviously isn't ideal at all. He was panned out to win a handicap hurdle at Kempton at the end of the season, and that didn't really go to plan whatsoever. But he has shown ability. I would like to see him go chasing this season. I think that will really sort of bring him on, make a man of him, as we've said many times in this show. And I just think, again, like Callum mentioned with his dark horse, he just wanted to stick in your tracker and hope he pops up in the future. That is actually all the all the races that we all the we're going to cover on this year's jumps preview. What we're going to do is our one sort of nap for the year, sort of best bet for the whole jump season. I don't think I've told George about this, so I'm putting him on the spot on that one. Me and Callum have had ours sorted for quite a while though. So Callum, I'll come to you first on yours.
To be fair, I keep changing mine, but I'll probably put up Simon Sig for the King George.
You're going to put Simon Sig for King George, final answer, yeah?
Yeah.
Fair enough. I am going for Faheen in the Champion Hurdle. I think he's absolutely nailed on in that if he gets there fit. George is going to go for...
I'm going to be boring. I can't see more of that getting beaten in the World Hurdle. It won't be much for a price, but in terms of your bet of the season, I think you get a better price now than you will on the day.
Yeah. And Adam, your bet for the season? If you dare say Cantlow in the Grand National.
Well, I've toyed with it, and can I explain why? It's because I've been so sweet on it. And I thought of Cheltenham races, and I can't find one that I'd solidly put myself to. If I did, it would be Boulder Success in the Champion Chase. But because I've been so sweet on it, I'm going to have to say Cantlow each way in the Grand National. If I wasn't as confident, I wouldn't do it. So he may not get there. I mean, all of them may not get there. But because I've been so sweet about it, I'm going to put it up. And if he finishes in the first four, I'll be a hero. If he falls at the first or doesn't make it, then say la vie.
You'll be Ad. Right, a few questions that we've had in. Tim Devine, thoughts on the trainers' title, chaps. Can John Joe give Nichols and Henderson something to think about?
Yeah.
For me, no.
Ooh.
Oh, okay, for you, yes. Fair enough.
Do you remember at the end of the season video we did at Sandown? And I actually said that I thought John Joe, with the ammunition he's got, could challenge. And I think he was 10 to 1 at that time, and now he's a shorter price. I just think he's got some very good horses now. He's got quantity and quality. He could do it. And he's in front at the minute because he's been obviously running a lot of horses over the summer. So.
And I just think he'll need a little bit more to beat the likes of Paul Nicholls and Nicky Henderson. I think Nicky Henderson's going to have a big season this year. I think he'll be the champion trainer, which is boring to say, but...
I'm going to go with John Joe. I'm gonna put my neck on the line and say John Joe.
His advantage on quantity, I think I might go for John Joe as well.
Champion trainer this year?
Champion trainer this year, I'd have to say it's probably still going to be... Actually, no. I'll give John Joe a shout, yeah.
Okay, 3 against 1 on John Joe again. I'm going boring with Nicky Henderson, so...
I just think all the big races are so open. That's where Henderson can dominate and rack up prize money. And for me, he's not going to dominate the big 4 races. And John Joe, like I just said, my better seems he's going to win the World Hurdle. So.
And he could win the Gold Cup as well. I mean, I don't fancy his horses for the race.
In the Champion Chase, won't he?
If his heart medicine's on standby.
Max Banner's one of the horses to follow for this season is Nicky Henderson horse called Gateway, who won a bumper. He said front 2 miles clear, and in second place was the decent T2, who we saw win at the weekend. He also says he hopes Balthazar King can have another good season, and Tammy's Hill. I think Tammy's Hill is actually in tomorrow.
One yesterday.
Yesterday, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just make a quick note on Tammy's Hill? Fair play to his connections. He won the Fox Hunters at the festival. They're actually going for the JN James Nicholson Wine Champion Chase, which is Grade 1. fair play to him for doing it to see how
fair
good he
enough.
actually is. Because I quite like it when Hunter Chasers actually make the step up, and some of them have been successful, others haven't been. But I think if they go down that route, they could reap some rewards this season.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And he's also part of Moonracer, who Moonracer won last weekend, didn't he?
Oh, he was impressive.
It was impressive.
It was a good bumper field as well. I did toy about putting him in the video, but I thought I'd leave it because he may stay in bumpers, he may go Novice Hurdling, but he's a very smart. That was a smart performance on Saturday. Very exciting, was.
Fair enough. From Phil Dinsdale, is Hollywell good enough to be a Gold Cup horse?
One thing about Hollywell is what I think. I can see him getting beat somewhere early in the season. Maybe, I don't know, the Betfair Chase or the King George. And then I can see him being a much better price than he will be on the day, potentially, or in the future. So if you fancy him for it, and I think he's got a very viable chance in a Gold Cup, don't back him now, back him later in the season. That's just my hunch.
Yeah,
wait
no,
till
I
January.
get that.
I'll wait till January, February.
He'll be primed for the moment in the Gold Cup if going down that route, which he probably most likely will. James Robinson has asked, what do we make of Jackadam as a Gold Cup hopeful and expectations for the Tullow Tank? Jackadam, I think we've already mentioned enough in this show. I think he's got a fantastic chance. Maybe next season I prefer his Gold Cup chances. The Tullow Tank we haven't mentioned at all, though. I personally would want to see him in a JLT.
That's, I think, the right race for him. He could even end up in an RSA. I think he's got 7 after 3 miles. The Drinmore was a target put forward for him, and I hope he repays the patience and the sportsmanship of Barry Connell, who, I'm not going to go into the reasons why, but he obviously didn't run at the festival last year. And I will say now, I did fancy him for the Supreme. If he'd have ran there, I think he'd have been a clear second behind the Tour. If he'd have ran him a Neptune, I think he'd have been a clear second behind Fahim. That's my view of him for the Novice Hurdles last year. So
I couldn't disagree with that too much. Phil Dinsdale's 2 to follow for the season. Anna Liffey, who Adam put up, and Quick Jack. Quick Jack's an interesting one. Jackie Kingdom, as we mentioned earlier, said she's looking forward to seeing Urban him over fences, Chaser written all over him. And he's entered in a beginner's chase at Carlisle on Thursday, apparently.
Over 2 miles, which I think will be a bit sharp for him, but they're just going to kick him out and make the run in, and I think he'll be fine.
Yeah. Dale Alco has gone for a lovable favourite Hoovlanders Oboe.
Oh.
Who, in fairness, always seems to run his race, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So he
goes well fresh.
Yeah. Jordan Rudge, if pushed for one horse to follow, it'd have to be Harry Fry's Vukovar, who, Callum, you agree with Jordan on that, don't you?
Yeah, connections like him a lot, so I don't disagree at all with that.
Bones Skeletor, the 1982, of course, that's a cracking name. One Ante-Post bet for Cheltenham from each of you, please. I've already said Fahim, you've said more of that. Callum and Adam, it's down to you.
All the success in the champion chase.
I'm going to go for Petit Zig in the Arkle.
Ooh.
Yeah, interesting on that. I expected you to say more of that, but fair enough.
No, I don't like going straight off. I think more of that will win, but Petit Zig at the prices I think is a good bet.
Fair enough. Noel Feely fans has tweeted us, which Charlie Longston's horses does Callum Liddell think we should look forward to seeing Noel aboard this season?
Put me on the spot there, I didn't see that question. Yeah, I mean, the 2 novices that ran in the bumper, Alcantha and Battleborn, are good horses. Battleborn, I think, is more long-term. Alcantha should be a good hurdler. More left field, there's a horse called Germany Calling that I think is very well handicapped still. Won the other day at Southall. And there's one that's unraced called Best Work, who is by Network. He is an absolute beast. I think he's a 3-year-old. He's going to be aimed at potentially the DBS bumper in the spring. He hasn't got a Racing Post page, but watch out for Best Work. It's all one word, just Best Work. He works very well at home.
Aptly named as well. I saw Paul Ferguson liked him as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he looks so good. He just stood out a country mile as in the young horses department.
Yeah. Paddock to Post tips. The question for George: how do you feel Stade Grugia will compete against Sprint Sacre this season?
My hunch is Sprint Sacre won't be as good, in which case the answer is no. If he comes back to 100% of his best, Sire will probably need soft ground to beat him, possibly heavy ground. Even Sprint Sacre is best. I cannot see Sire getting beat on heavy ground.
So Tingle Creek, basically. That's the perfect race for Sire against Sprinter.
Come the Champion Chase, if it's good ground and Sprint Sacre is back to 100%, you'll see a very, very good race.
Yeah, I wouldn't put you off that at all. Jamie Brown has been sending his horses in throughout the night of who he fancies for the season. Joss's Hill, we're talking maybe, has had a few setbacks. We'll probably see later on in the season over fences. Juvenile to follow, Mr. Galavanta. Won very well at Stratford and Kelso. Good luck with that, Jamie, and good luck with Towering as well, who you also have a share in. Lovely Rebecca Matthews. Pay me for that. You can pay me for saying that later. Horses to follow, Heltara and Artificial if he goes jumping. Sondi Burley as well. Artificial, I did agree with. Looks at a chaser, probably hurdler all over as well from the flat from Richard Hannons. Gillian has tweeted in. I'm not sure if Callum has shed any light on this. Vukovar's had a setback and may not be heading to the Howden Gold Cup now. Sorry.
When was that? Damn it.
Well, so you spoke to Claude.
I spoke to Michelle on Saturday.
Yeah, that's fairly recent, isn't it? And he was still bullet in the Howden Gold Cup, wasn't he?
Might have had a setback.
Oh.
I know Gillian knows her stuff when it comes to Harry Fry, so.
Breaking news on the other hoof. Oh.
Just thinking of the Howden Gold Cup, just a little interesting bit of news for that. Sali Grugi's actually entered it. As is Vino Griega.
As is Vino?
Oh, Vino, piss it.
Yeah, it's absolutely bold up.
Maybe Sire's his pacemaker.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've got to set the race up for him.
Yeah. You've got to, and then hope he takes it.
Yeah. As for Heltara that Becca mentioned there, is the horse that I own half of a hoof of about that much of that she bought as a Christmas present today. Excited to be owning a horse for the first time. We'll probably need 15 miles though, being by Heltara out of Heltornic, so hopeful
love Heltornic. Novice Chase winner, Grand National Trial winner, should have won at Cheltenham when she sadly fell and injured herself. Lovely mare. The late Michael Scudamore as well, yeah.
Yeah. Jamie Brownlow, more horses to follow. Irving, the new one. Trust and Time, Shotgun Paddy. Lebec, who was a non-runner this weekend. Eli Brown, who I think we all mentioned last year. Then he's gone up to something which I mentioned a bit earlier. I think Javert.
Yep. I took these from the other day. I copied and pasted quick the other day, yeah. So I got all these horses. I guess I'll put my tent or yours in. Who's not, obviously. Yeah.
And he's also gone for Towering as well. Jeff Handley has asked if we're going to list all the horses that we mentioned somewhere. We will. Last year we made a tracker and then we tweeted them the day before they were going to run. So we'll probably be doing that again this season. So watch out for the On The Other Hoof account for that. Steve Lullington's tweeted in, where's the lean green grilling machine? Never saw it once. Does anyone get that?
The lean green grilling machine. Maybe Michael? I don't know.
Could have been lean, mean grilling machine in terms of George Foreman.
Yeah,
George
Foreman.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard it so many times that that's what actually comes to mind.
I mean, it's not unfunny, Steve, but
we all laugh.
If you hadn't been for the misspelling in there, to put green in there, it might have been funny.
Answers on the postcard, please, Steve. Thank you very much. That's the last question that I've got. Any of you?
I've got a couple from the other day.
Yeah.
When you said the other day, I think in the video for Cheltenham Fancies, Sean took it literally. Went for the festival with his, and he said Champagne Fever for the Gold Cup. He's not been mentioned tonight. I don't know about him now. I'm sat on the fence with him. I don't know what to do with him.
Yeah, no, I'd wait and see with him. In fairness.
Nigel Brown, we watched the show for the first time the other day, so he really enjoyed it, so thanks for that, Nigel. He said, did David Pipe ever give an explanation for King's Palace's poor effort in the Albert Bartlett? I don't know.
I've got the Racing Post today.
Ooh. Yes,
no,
the stable talk.
I'll have to go get it. I can't remember, I read as well.
I thought he went, well, they went a real tough gallop in that. And I know that he's maintained it before over 3 miles, but I just think it was such a brutal test that he just couldn't cope with it on the day. I don't know. Maybe something else will come to light and
He's definitely had a wind operation.
Yeah,
I know that for a fact. But what I'm worried about the horse, I think he's just going to be there to be shot at in races, in those chases from the front. I just think he's just going to be vulnerable to classy horses. And one point I want to make, I can see him absolutely bolting up in a few Novice Chasers and being silly prices for Cheltenham, and then you lay him at Cheltenham. Simple as that.
I agree with that completely, 150%. Quelch versus Food gave the horse yesterday. It has to be To the Sky, who ran well today at Plumpton. And since he's gone to Jamie Snowden, I think the form figures are 1-3-2-2 or 1-2-3-2. So that's a
underrated trainer.
Yeah, I like Jamie Snowden. And obviously, you mentioned Present View, and I think we all fancy him for the Paddy Power. And he's also got a really dark horse I didn't mention called Agenor. He's an absolute giant from Germany, and he goes juvenile hurdling this winter. And the last tweet I've got is from Graham Woods, who said, "What would you do with the Tour this season if you owned him? Would you go chasing, or would you keep him over hurdles and go for the champion hurdle?"
Chase him. You've got Forheen for the champion hurdle.
That's the way I thought.
And Walter just looks a chaser to me.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, if he did run in a champion hurdle, I thought he would have gone close. But
George said earlier that, when he said that he was more impressive than Forheen at Cheltenham, and I agree. At the time, I thought Walter was a lot more impressive.
What Forheen's done since was incredible.
Yeah.
But I just can't get that Cheltenham out of my head. He looked so raw and he looked like a chaser at Cheltenham. Sure, Punchdown, he sort of chucked that out the window, but it's still in your head, you know.
Yeah.
To me, he just looks like a chasing type, and Vitor looks ready-made, whereas Forheen looks like he's ready to grow in. He needs to grow into himself.
Yeah.
Two more little things. Michael gave us one horse to follow, which is a horse called Alphabet Bay, so it won a bumper. And surprisingly, Charlie, my dog, gave us a horse to follow. I asked her for a horse to follow earlier, and she replied with Woof.
Woof, yes.
I was going to put in a thought of that, and I thought, nice, humorous way to get it in.
Gillian's come back very quickly and said, as the news came out as of this morning, was told he won't be heading to the Howden Gold Cup. An alternative target will be made in due course.
Damn it.
So that's look of our possibly out of the Howden Gold Cup. Breaking news on the other hoof. Mully's come back. Thanks for the grilling clarification. On a serious note, Warren and Trust and Times are my long-term national fantasies. Couldn't really put you off either of them, in fairness. And he also said a big shout out to all those attending Aintree this weekend. Broomsticks optional. And on that broomstick bombshell, I think that's a good point.
The Aintree Fox Hunters. Warren goes back and wins the Aintree Fox Hunters again. I don't think it's saving a national trip.
Well, I think that's a good point to leave our jumps preview. That's been a marathon this season.
I
think
1 hour 57.
Cantlow definitely wouldn't stay it anyway.
Sure.
But to those of you who stuck around, thank you very much for tuning in to our jumps preview of 2014-2015. Thank you very much for George Gordon for joining us and staying up past your bedtime. You've got to get up early for morning stables, haven't you?
Yeah, 5 past 5 for ground.
Yeah, good luck. I was thinking of you at that point. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. We hope you have we hope you have an enjoyable jump season. And for everyone here on the other hoof, goodbye.